Today's show is sponsored by the ABV Barrel Shop. The ABV Barrel Shop is located in the St. Louis metro community of Arnold, Missouri, and is the world's first single barrel only liquor store. This business is owned and operated by Steve Akeley and Jim Fosnot. Head over to abvbarrelshop.com to sign up for their email and text distribution list. That way you'll know what they have in stock, what classes are coming up, and what barrel picks they have in the works. We are also sponsored by The Bar to Go. The Bar to Go offers a fully customizable carrying case that allows you to take your favorite distilled spirits or cocktail ingredients with you. Whether you're looking for yourself, a customized gift, or logo items for your business or event, The Bar to Go can help. Check them out at thebar2go.com. Use the number 2 when you type out The Bar to Go. Did you know Neely Family Distillery now ships its popular distilled spirits directly to you? To order, simply call 859-394-3258. Tell them the ABV Network sent you. And now, on to the show.
Let's drink!
Welcome to the Bourbon Daily, the podcast about everything bourbon delivered to you every day of the week. Today on the show, we get into some scenarios and ask our attorney friend, Katie, about what you should do when being accused of drinking and driving. My name is Miss Beka Sue. Please join me in welcoming my co-host, Steve Akeley, along with our special guests, Katie Joyce, Evan Van Scoik, and Lenny Eckstein.
Hey, gang, what's up?
Howdy. Hello.
There's so much misinformation out there, and people always want to tell you this and tell you that. We'll do an ask the lawyer type of thing, so that'll be fun. But before we get to that, Evan, you said you've recently been in Scotland, and we wanted us to ask you some questions about the distillery. So, what are some of the differences that you immediately noticed as you go in there? Besides, of course, just being in a different country, that's obvious. But what are some things that production-wise or other that you just stand out as different?
So there weren't major differences from visiting a distillery in Scotland. So, basic tour structures are all pretty much the same. You get some talk about the history. They walk you through the production area. You see the still, then they take you to tastings. A lot of places there also have the tasting only options if you don't want to do that. But the biggest difference, they're using 100% malted barley, right? Mm-hmm. And what you will find at the different ones is some do use peat smoke and some do not. So there are going to be some differences from the taste, and the flavor profiles are immediately different. If you don't drink Scotch, if you are just a rye and bourbon person, the taste is what's immediately the most different. And it definitely takes some getting used to. I wouldn't say myself as a Scotch drinker, but my wife is. So she was able to enjoy it much more. But luckily, we did a 3-day Speyside tour. So those Scotches tend to be lighter. We did one lowland and then mainly highland distilleries during that visit. So,
yeah. My first question for you is, gift shops, because we think of distillery tours and then it goes into a big gift shop. Is that the same thing, or is that more of an American thing where you have this big gift shop with all this logo merchandise and all that kind of stuff? What are the gift shops like?
Actually, I would say almost the same.
Okay.
I don't know which one got the ideas from who. The ones that are the giant corporate owned ones, so like Diageo distilleries, they also do cross promotions. So when we were at Dalwhinnie, they also had other distillery products that were Diageo products available there, either at their tasting bar, which they have a large tasting bar, and they also had their current cross promotion. So you might remember the Game of Thrones Scotch whiskeys that all came out. That was a Diageo promotion across their profile or portfolio. And the new version there, they had 4 different bottles. So they were from different distilleries. But since Dalwhinnie was a Diageo distillery, they had those products available in the store. So you can buy their whiskey. They almost always have a distillery exclusive at every distillery you go to. So something you can only buy in their gift shop that day. And you can't guarantee it'll be there the next time you ever visit. And then they'll have their main products. They'll have vests, shirts, sweaters, glasses with engravings. So most of the things you're used to finding at a US distillery, you're going to find at a Scotland distillery as well for their gift shop.
Okay. What do you guys want to know? Lenny, you own a distillery here. Do you have any questions about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess culturally, I'm kind of curious. Did you find, like, seeing as though Evan, you've been throughout Kentucky plenty, and Kentucky and Scotland aren't, population-wise, they're almost the same. I mean, Scotland's got like maybe an extra million people. Did it have the same vibe in terms of like stoke for their national product, or were people like, you guys are drinking that stuff? We just drink beer. Were they up on it, or was it kind of somewhere in the middle?
So I would say at the when I was visiting those particular distilleries, I think because we were on a guided tour and they were all prearranged at like, I would say non-busy hours. So we were there on a Friday at 11 when they open, a Saturday morning at like 11 when they open. So in general, we didn't see large crowds. We did see a couple other tour buses also come through along with us. But I think most people were tourists. I didn't see what appeared to be a whole lot of locals. It is kind of hard to tell. But like my bus was a bus of 12 people, and we were from all different parts of the world. So it was just myself and my wife from the US. We had people from New Zealand, Australia, and people from Germany on our tour bus. So that you do see quite a range. Everyone spoke English extremely well. Obviously, it's the main either. You wouldn't want to say someone's right? Not England, Scotland, but they speak English. So you're okay there. Everybody's very open, and almost anywhere we went, it was very accessible. I would say the culture around whiskey and bourbon, big on fellowship, big on people enjoying what they drink. They encourage people, if you want water, if you want it on the rocks, however you want it, drink it how you want and enjoy it, share it with others.
Okay.
Did you paint your face like William Wallace while you were?
No.
Oh, no, damn.
That's weird. No,
Should have.
no. Katie, what do you want to know about Evan's great adventure?
Was there any encouragement to dress in traditional Scottish garb?
I wish Evan would have.
I was not going to take my kilt
out.
with me. The only person I saw wearing kilt the entire time was actually our tour guide, who was a former New Zealander who relocated to Scotland maybe like 9 years ago.
Okay.
And he wore it the first day as part of his uniform. So
Okay.
he was wearing a kilt, and his nickname was, people around town will call me the Kiwi in a kilt, because he's from New Zealand and he wears.
The Canadian Prime Minister would have been there. He'd have been in one. Actually, he dressed up in the local garb. Yeah. So
How was all the whiskey?
I actually enjoyed most of it. I was telling Lenny before we started recording that I actually didn't enjoy the bourbon barrel finished as much as I ended up enjoying most of the wine finishes. So sherry seemed to be big. A couple places were doing some cognac finishes. So those tend to be a little bit easier to go down. I did notice almost all the primary offerings are around 90-ish or like 86 proof, very easy, what they would consider easy drinkers. To me, I would have preferred the ones that are closer to barrel proof, which you generally only got those on the distillery exclusive ones. Or a couple of locations did fill your own barrel or fill your own bottle options. So both Cardew and I think Dalwhinnie both had those options to fill your own bottle. So those would be like the only ones that you could get barrel proof. So I was hoping for a little bit more proof. Those ones I tended to enjoy a little bit more. But since we didn't go to Isla, which is known for the heavier smoke, peat flavors. I was a little bit safer. Speyside was better for a non-heavy smoke Scotch drinker. So I definitely was able to enjoy myself along with Taylor, who was obviously loving it.
All right. Evan, you touched on this, but I want to clarify. No language issues, right? Because while they speak English, it is very different accents. And I watch Scottish movies, and sometimes it can be tough to understand what they're saying. Do you never ran into any of that on your tours?
No. Everyone who was a tour guide, a distillery representative, someone at the bar, everyone spoke very, very clearly, very legibly. So, yeah, I don't know if that.
No, I don't think hearing.
It only applies to writing.
Yeah.
Well, it was easy to understand. So I had no struggle. Even actually going to Greece, which was where we went afterwards, is everybody spoke English very well. So it was actually an easy experience.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, guess what, gang? It is time to drink. What is everyone drinking? Let's start with Miss Beka Sue. 1K, no C.
I have got some. I can barely even see anything here because it's so dark in this room. I've got some Wood Hat Old Blue single barrel cast strength that I picked up at the ABV Barrel Shop in Arnold, Missouri.
Nice. Yeah. Sold out. Popular offering. Oh, very good. Very good. Could be enough.
Solid.
Could be enough. Yeah. Katie, what do you got?
I have some Tomstown distilling bourbon.
All
I just
right.
love this bottle so much. It's so pretty.
Yeah, it's cool. Art Deco. Okay. Also very good, but not as good as Miss Beka Sue's.
No.
Not as good as Miss Beka Sue's. Lenny, you're next. You would have probably be sitting 2-0 right now on the two shows we recorded. You had people talk over you on the previous two. Let's see how you do on this one.
Shut up this time. I've got a in honor of Evan's recent trip, a bottle of Port Charlotte 10.
Okay. Not as solid as your other ones, but even though everyone's quiet. So,
Yeah.
I'll go next. I've got a Knob Creek here. This is a pick, I believe, or maybe not. No, it's not. So there you go. All right. Now, I got nothing going on here. All right, Evan, you're last, but not least again, Evan.
All right. So since at the ABV Barrel Shop, you recently had Rick come in from Iron Root, I decided to go grab my bottle of Iron Root Harbinger.
We had Robert, but yeah, that's okay.
Oh, Robert. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Starts with an R.
Sorry, Robert.
Okay. Also a solid offering there, but not as good as Becca's. Beka clearly won that one, so cheers, gang.
Hell yeah.
Cheers. Ding.
All right. We'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to be talking about some different scenarios and see exactly what you should do if you find yourself in one of them. We'll do that in just a few. Let's talk about the people who make these shows happen. First up is the ABV Barrel Shop. It is the most unique shopping experience in the world of bourbon, as the ABV Barrel Shop only sells single barrels. Owners Steve Akeley and Jim Fosnot select. With over 100 distilleries on board to sell us barrels, we are home to the most unique and diverse barrel pick selections in the bourbon world. By signing up for our email, you will always know what we have in stock. In addition to the single barrels, we'll have a gift shop featuring ABV Barrel Shop as well as ABV Network merchandise. We are partnering with vendors like Art Eatables and Old Man Bay Signs to bring you unique items you can't find anywhere else. We will also have a 24-seat classroom where we are offering educational and fun classes like Breakfast and Bourbon, a series where we pair donuts and bourbon, customer barrel picks, and opportunities to learn from master distillers and other bourbon dignitaries. Best of all, we feature a tasting bar where you can try before you buy. All of this is located in the St. Louis metro community of Arnold, Missouri. If you are in the St. Louis area, please stop by to say hi. If you're traveling in from outside the area, please take advantage of our hotel rates with the Drury Inn and Pear Tree Inn, less than a mile from our shop. This can be done via the links in our Visit St. Louis section on our website. Head over to abvbarrelshop.com to plan your trip. The ABV Barrel Shop. It's where single barrels live. Hi, this is Steve Akeley, owner of the ABV Network. We're sponsored by the Stave and Thief Society. This is where you, a bourbon enthusiast, can expand your knowledge and emerge a bourbon steward. In 2017, I completed my executive bourbon steward certification. It's the most comprehensive bourbon certification program available and connects you with an expansive network of bourbon enthusiasts and professionals. Check out the full listing of in-person and online certifications and join the society today by enrolling at staveandthief.com. Okay, let's talk about the Neely Family Distillery. In 2018, I met Royce Neely at an industry event. He started appearing on our shows, and we became friends during my frequent trips to Kentucky. Today, he is amongst the leaders of young distillers leaving their mark on the bourbon industry. A visit to Neely Family Distillery yields insight on their unique family history, why their products are special, and gives you the opportunity to taste their whiskey, moonshine, and creams. Check them out at NeelyFamilyDistillery.com or visit them in Sparta, Kentucky.
I'm McNew. Don't mix your grain and grapes. Not a good time. You're listening to the Bourbon Daily.
Welcome back to the Bourbon Daily. Today, talk to my lawyer.
Yes, we are. So yes, Katie, a couple things, and we'll run through three different scenarios. I'd like to run through if you had absolutely nothing to drink. You're stone cold sober, but for some reason, maybe it's from the area you're coming out of. There's a lot of distilleries, and they just assume you've been drinking.
Yep.
And you haven't drank at all. Maybe a situation where you had a few, but you know that you're fine. And then maybe if you're like, oh, this is pretty questionable. I've had quite a bit. So we'll talk about those. But what are your rights out of the gate? If an officer says, step out of the car, I need you to walk a straight line and do all those type of things, do you automatically have to do that? Is there any compliance if you say no to that, even? Or, so I know that we'll get into the, blowing into the meter, but the other things, you have to do those things.
Before you answer, Katie, I'd like to preface with saying that the ABV network does not condone drinking and driving of any kind at any point whatsoever. But
Absolutely.
please,
There's so many options out there now, when you're talking about not only the old days taxi cabs, and we still have those, of course. We have Uber, we have Lyft, we have various other means. Call a friend, whatever you need to do. That's what you should need to be doing. So, yeah.
Yes. And so I also want to give the disclaimer that my law practice is here in Missouri. And so all of my knowledge is based on Missouri law. Now, there are quite a few states that are similar, but so anything I say is just my experience in Missouri, and
going to be unique too. Yeah.
Nothing that I'm saying is legal advice. So we are just having a discussion. If you find yourself in any of these situations, definitely you should be speaking to an attorney about your specific situation, but it's definitely a fun discussion that we can have. And I can kind of apply some of my knowledge on. So for the field sobriety test, now the officer needs to have reasoning to be asking you to complete that. In Missouri law, you are allowed to refuse to take the field sobriety test. Mm-hmm. And so Missouri does allow you to refuse that part. Now, I would say for a practical experience, if they're asking you to do the field sobriety and you're refusing, you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to be arrested.
Right.
So that's just kind of the risk that you then have to accept. That refusal could be, it depends on the exact of, that would be a hard one, because completely refusing to do it while you're then not giving them any information from the field sobriety test to use against you, that is, and I believe off the top of my head, would allow them to ask you to blow and get to the part where there is implied consent and marking off that basically you refuse to do that. Right. And so however, if you have not been drinking, which I think is our first.
Right. That's our first scenario. You haven't had a drink, but for some reason, this officer is convinced that you have. Maybe you were not paying the attention to the level you should. You swerved a little bit or something. There's something that caused them to pull you over initially, and then they're just making some assumptions.
And if you have not had anything to drink, most of it, just comply with the officer is going to end up easier for you, because at that point you're trying to make it most convenient for you. You're not trying to get arrested. You're trying just to get home. So you're wanting to comply at that part so that you can get this done as soon as you can and get the hell home. Because if you're going to refuse to field sobriety, you're most likely going to end up arrested. But if you are in the situation where you're pretty confident or you've had few too many, you may actually want to consider refusing the field sobriety test, because you are allowed to refuse that part of the test, whereas it does not apply the same for them asking you to blow. Because the big thought here is that you don't want to give them anything to use against you. So you don't want to admit to anything, and you don't want to give them anything to use against you. This is a huge area of technicalities in the law, which as a defense attorney, I love, and that most of the cases where I'm successful in a lot of the refusals that I have, it's because, well, they shouldn't have made that traffic stop to begin with, or they didn't have their probable cause to then continue on with the questioning of regards to drinking or DWI. And so all the technicalities of it, and as I tell clients, a lot of it, you just got to kind of hope that the officer messed up on a lot of these. Because if they do everything they're supposed to and check all the boxes they're supposed to, the law is so detailed and so specific on DWIs that it's not looking great if they actually followed absolutely everything they're supposed to do.
Yeah. What if you, you can get in all these scenarios, but you're out mowing the grass that day and you trip and you fall and your ankle's a little messed up and you can't pass the field sobriety things. And of course, everyone's going to tell the officer. You watch these videos, everyone has some excuse why they can't, so something's happened to them. But you legit have a thing. But again, you haven't drank. Do you still just do the breathalyzer because you're going to pass and then just get out of there and then that's it? I would assume, right? I mean, you just want to do the right thing and get on with your just do the breathalyzer and they'll come back and it'll come out 0.0 and have a nice night, I would assume.
Yep. Yeah. Because
it doesn't always work though.
Really?
Right.
And I found out firsthand. This is a much longer story, but Katie, I can't begin to qualify the legal versions of what is and is not DUI, DWAI. But I was in a circumstance where I was pulled over for speeding, which I absolutely was doing. And they insisted on a field sobriety test, which I thought, fine, whatever. And I didn't know any of these things. I wish I had listened to this show previously. They did not tell me, but my breathalyzer, whatever it is, field one result was 0.03, as I found out later. But I still was taken to a detox facility, which was weird because there was nothing to detox at that point. So fun night for me. But sometimes in Colorado, they will say, we don't care what your level is. We don't like what you had to say to us. So you're going to go through the ringer.
Yep.
So, but then ultimately, Lenny, are you, again, I'm asking because I don't know. Were you in trouble for anything at that point? Or just like, no, you got to sit here till it comes out 0.0 and then you're fine? Or were you in some sort of trouble? You're clearly under
no trouble, but sob story of sorts. They essentially check you in. The police officer will not leave until you sign. I still was not made aware of what my level was. So I was pretty confused. And it was like 2 a.m. at 3 a.m. at that point. And they would not retest until that morning. So I basically
Holy cow.
Yeah. So I didn't get out of there till like 7 or 8 a.m. And I had to pay $500 to be there. Crazy. Really? So I'm of the mindset, so I'm of the mindset of, and later I had long story, but the short of it, I had a police officer suggest a field sobriety test when I was completely sober, and I actually yelled at him and told him I was not going to do that. And he conceded to say, fine, how about this? You agree to stay here for 1 hour and I won't push any harder. And I was like, I can do that. There's a sushi restaurant right there. I'll go have some sushi and chill. I don't care. But
oh my gosh.
That's
crazy, craziness.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Because I understand some of the logic behind that. If you're at a 0.03, you could, you're levels could be going up at that point. You could have like just stopped drinking, but
True.
like in
Not wait until the next morning. Right. Yeah.
right? Because that's a wait 20 minutes and recheck, not
right.
a holy cow. And
I
that's
know
a
in my
perfect-
circumstance, I thought I was being quite responsible. I was at a company party and I had stopped drinking much earlier and was like, you know what? I'm feeling pretty fine now. I'm going to drive home now. So yeah. Lesson learned.
Yeah.
That's a excellent point too of the differences between different state laws, and even it can change county to county as well of how they handle them as well, and what resources they have. That some counties may have like a system where they have a third party where they go take you to, where then they don't test you till the next morning. Other ones you're going to the local jail, etc. So that's definitely a good example of how it can vary so greatly. Oh my gosh, that's crazy though.
Interesting side story to that. When I ultimately secured an attorney, because, you know, I still had to proceed with a trial of sorts after all this, I talked to an attorney and his opinion was, he was like, look, you can pay me, but there's no way they're not going to throw this out completely. He was like, they have nothing on you. You did nothing wrong. And so I didn't retain his services and they did throw it out. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Katie, what do you think of this situation that I may or may not have been involved in?
Okay.
I may or may not have, and this was a very long time ago. I'm 34 now. This happened prior to me being 21.
Okay.
I got pulled over in the morning and I refused and I refused and I refused. I said, nope, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not doing a breathalyzer. I'm not doing field sobriety. I'm not doing any of it. I'm not drunk. I'm not doing any of that. And they said, that's fine. Then you're going to jail. And I said, that's fine. Fucking take me to jail. I do not give a shit. And so I went to jail. I got bailed out. And then I went to court. And when I went to court, I was like, at the time, North Dakota had the most lax DUI laws. But to get charged with a refusal was 1 year suspended license, but at the time it was only 3 months suspended license for a DUI. Now it is not that. But at the time, like I said, a DUI suspension was shorter than a refusal suspension. Mm-hmm. And so when I went to court, they said, would you like to plead guilty to a DUI? And I said, yeah, because I'm not going to not have a license for a year. I said, yes, I plead guilty to a DUI. So I was like, shit, now I got a DUI on my record and this sucks. They didn't even have any proof. And then about a month later, I got my court records in the mail. And in the records, it said that we cannot charge you with a DUI because there's a lack of evidence. So the state of North Dakota cannot charge you with a DUI at this time, just as the city of Minot is. And so I never actually got a DUI because they had no evidence that I had been drunk.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Did they also dismiss the refusal though, as well?
Yeah. So I never got a refusal. All I got was I got charged, but I never lost. So I never ever lost my license at all.
Okay.
I never lost my license. I never got a refusal. I never got anything. But the city of where I was from, I had on the books in the city, I had a DUI, but on the state, I did not have a DUI.
So and there is an interesting, like kind of two-part system there that happens there's an administrative system for your license, and then the criminal and traffic side of it that's done either through the city that charges you or the county court, which would be the state that charges you. So there's two lines of each DWI as well, of what appears like on your driving record and then what appears on your court record. And most of the times those will match up and coordinate, but sometimes they don't. And especially when you have refusals, it could be that you end up with a refusal, because in Missouri, if you refuse to blow, you do end up 1 year, no license. But depending on the situation, there may not be enough evidence to actually charge you with suspected driving while intoxicated or careless and imprudent driving or whatever else it may be. So there's nothing that shows up on your criminal record on like the traffic side of it, and it's only under your license, or vice versa. It can end up one way or the other, because you actually, a lot of times people will hire me to fight have an administrative hearing on their refusal. And so if we win that, based on most times saying there wasn't probable cause to ask them to blow in the first place, And so if we win that refusal, most of the time I can take that over to their criminal charges for DWI and say, hey, I showed this administrative judge that they didn't even have the probable cause to ask them to blow. And then I end up getting it dismissed, amended, whatever. But that prosecutor could say, well, it's in front of a different judge. I just want to try it again. And that judge may come to a different conclusion. So you could end up with that it's in one place and not the other, like that as well.
It was definitely an interesting situation. And I was young at the time, so I did not have the money for a lawyer, obviously. Otherwise I would have got one. I probably could have won my case, I would guess, because the only reason the cop had pulled me over was because it was 6 a.m. and I was pulling into a turning lane. And I was a block from my house. And so I was coming around a turn, and as I was coming around the turn, I was pulling into the turning lane, which I guess could look like a swerve.
But it
And
was
so he
to
said
turn.
I swerved, and I said, that's literally my house. Look at my license. Like I was turning here to get home.
So really, if anything, it would have been not using a blinker.
I had on a
If-
blinker.
Huh.
Oh.
Yeah, I had a blinker that I was turning. I was literally doing everything I should. And he pulled me over because it was 6 a.m. And so he said I was drinking. So, like I said, I was too young to actually like afford a lawyer. And so that's why I never hired one. Because I didn't like what I didn't really know what to do, because I was like, I'm not like this guy. And the only the reason I didn't even do a test, I had drank earlier in the night, but I was not drunk at that point, but I was also under 21. And so I didn't want to get something like that. But the guy was being a fucking asshole. And so I didn't want to comply whatsoever, because he was just being an asshole. It was like, you're drunk, get out of the car. I'm giving you a breathalyzer. And I was like, no, I'm supposed to have like a field sobriety. And he's like, then we're doing it. And I was like, no, I'm supposed to refuse. From what I know, I'm supposed to refuse everything. Like, then know what? You're going to jail. And I was like, good. You're an asshole. I will enjoy going to jail. Let's do that. Let's go to jail right now. And I was like, hell yeah, let's go to jail. And I was fine with it just because he was a dick. And I didn't want to be nice to him because
Why were you crying in your mugshot though? Because
I have never cried in a mugshot. I can tell you that much. I've had more than one, but I've never cried in a mugshot before. In fact, I look beautiful in my main mugshot.
Oh, that's
I
nice.
look very nice. I saw the picture and I went, this was not from this time.
Can I get a copy of that?
This was from about 2 years prior, my first mugshot. And I said, can I get a copy of that? I said, that's a very nice picture. Can I get a copy? And they just laughed. But
so Katie, for someone who I've never experienced anything like Beka or Lenny has, and I've never even needed to contact a lawyer before. What are ways of going about and actually contacting lawyers? The only thing I've ever heard is that one commercial that's like the "Did you blow?"
The Law
commercial.
Tigers?
I don't know. It's like 855-4040 thing. Whatever.
Oh, the Law Tigers will take care of it. Oh, you don't have to worry. That's
Or the Alabama Hammer guy.
Yes.
There's more than one hammer out there, by the way. That's a common thing. The hammer.
So and actually it's very difficult to find an attorney that you can get a hold of, because most of these happen at 2 a.m. This is not standard business hours that people usually get pulled over for DUI and accused of this. And when you are at the police station, and one of the things on my list is to always ask to speak to an attorney, because especially under Missouri law, part of the requirements is that if you ask to speak to an attorney, you're supposed to be given 20 minutes to speak to an attorney. And so I have had another DWI thrown out because my client on the video of the body cam asked, I want to talk to a lawyer. And they did not give him 20 minutes to do so. They just continued with the field sobriety test. Well, at that point, I think they'd finished field sobriety, but they continued and took him to the station and asked him to blow, but did not give him that time before blowing to speak to an attorney. And so because of that, I was able to have his refusal thrown out because under Missouri law. And so even at 2 a.m. though, unless you have the cell phone number of an attorney, or unless you know one of those bigger companies who has 24-hour lines, you're not going to get a hold of someone. But that's part of my suggestion is you want to request everything you can, because you want to put on as many layers on top of this as you can. Because even if you know I don't know a cell phone number of an attorney. I don't remember the name of any of those big firms that have 24-hour lines. When they put a phone book in front of me, I have no idea who I'm going to even try calling. But at least you want to test them of requesting the attorney to make sure that they give you that opportunity, because if they don't, and then now you've added that layer on it of you requested the attorney. And so
Lenny just pulled up Beka's mugshot, and yeah, it's not as nice as she said.
Definitely.
Oh, great.
In her mind, this is a good photo.
It's not gonna let me download it. Why does it always do this to me?
Oh yeah, it's good.
Save
It's
to
good.
folder. Yes.
You should just be able to hit it and it opens it up.
It never does that for me.
Oh
Ever.
my gosh. No, it made me download it too. But the other thing is you can at least spend that 20 minutes pretending to talk to a lawyer saying, hey, I'm still trying other numbers, because at least then it could give you 20 minutes for your BAC to go down.
Yeah.
And so you can use that to delay, because the other thing I suggest is now it may go against you because your BAC might be going up if you just finished drinking recently. But if you stopped drinking a while ago and your BAC is going down, you want to delay to help it go down further before you blow. And so using that full 20 minutes as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Like in Lenny's example, he had quit drinking a long time ago. That would be something that
Because an
clearly would be
extra
a
20
strategy.
minutes, if
Right.
you were already at a 0.03, an extra 20 minutes could have had it done at
And
all
this-
zeros.
Katie, can this 20 minutes start at any time? Like, so officer pulls you over, knocks on the window and says, hey, we're going to do this field sobriety. Can you be like, I got to talk to my lawyer right then before,
So-
or is this at a certain time in the proceedings?
So it has to be under the official form for the alcohol influence report. It just has to be before they can ask you to do the official submitting to a chemical test.
Okay. Gotcha.
So that they allow you to speak to an attorney then
Okay.
and give you that time.
Okay.
So now and that's not even they may have you blow on the side of the road, but they have to take you actually back to the station and have you blow in the official calibrated machine. And so that would be before you do it in the official calibrated machine, or before they would do a blood draw or some other kind of chemical test.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. There
Yeah.
you go. All right. I mean, certainly there's plenty more questions. What, you got something, Evan, you want to get in?
So the only thing that came to my mind is there any, because you mentioned the refusal stuff. Is there anything with pleading the fifth during a traffic stop that you can utilize?
It's a court.
Not
thing, right?
necessarily
Yeah.
pleading the fifth, because that's when you get into a courtroom for procedure but I definitely suggest don't admit you've had anything to drink. It in no way benefits you. So even an officer pulls out to me right now and I've got this Glencairn in my hand. You've been drinking tonight? No, officer, I have not. You do not want to give them anything. You don't want to admit that you've had a single beer, because then that is one check mark against you and all of these items that they have to build that probable cause. So you don't want to admit to anything. You don't even want to admit that you're speeding if you have been drinking. Now, if you have not been drinking at all and your goal is just, I want to get the hell out of this traffic stop ASAP. Yes,
Right.
admit to, yep, officer, I was speeding. Yep, I went over the line there. I totally, ran through that stop sign like I typically would on a very minor traffic stop. I just admit to it because I'm like, I don't care. It's a minor traffic violation. I'm going to be able to get it amended. Let's just get me the hell out of this traffic stop and move about my day. And so part of it, I'm probably, which it's the word, people like, do you know why I pulled you over? Yep, I was definitely speeding down the highway. So if you want to write me a ticket, let's do this. Like, let's go. But but you do not want to admit to drinking at all. Not, I had 2 beers earlier, but I stopped drinking 5 hours ago. Nope, I haven't had a thing to drink at all. Not a thing, because you don't want to give them any of that information to use against you. And that especially is if you've had a few or if you've had too many, and because it can absolutely, it's so crazy how your BAC can be different of if you have had a heavy meal or no meal. And so even if you're an experienced drinker and think you know your limits, it can really surprise you of how quickly 0.08 can be there in different situations. Were you dehydrated? Of all the different scenarios that can play out. So if you've had anything to drink, don't admit to anything. And then as well, delay on, if you do end up agreeing to do the field sobriety test, make sure that you give them all the reasons of like, I've got bad knees, I've got dry eyes, I have allergies, I like all the reasons of why you may look impaired, even if anything you can add in there, you want to add in, so that then there's plausible explanation for why you didn't stand straight or etc. And to remember that the biggest thing about those tests is following instructions more than anything. And so it's just listening closely to the instructions. And then knowing as well, because it used to be in the rules for Missouri, we always suggested to people don't blow, but that's when then they changed it and they passed the implied consent rules. And so now if they do have probable cause to ask you to blow, it's assumed that you have implied consent to submit to a chemical test. And so you do have to agree if there's probable cause to ask you to blow or to submit to a test. And so with that, if you have not had a DWI before and you're not going to lose your job for having a DWI on your record, really, it's not a huge deal for their first one. You can get a hardship license with you can go just 90 days with an ignition interlock, so you don't have to lose your license at all. Or you can go 30 days without a license and then just get limited license without the ignition interlock. If it's you have a career where you're going to lose your job if you get a DWI, then it's probably worth just denying it and not blowing. And hoping that they don't have probable cause to ask you, because you haven't admitted to drinking, and in that case, you probably shouldn't agree to do the field sobriety test, because you want to give them as limited information as possible. And just realizing you're probably getting arrested and you're gonna go sit in jail overnight. But if it saves your job, it saves your job. But also don't drink and drive.
Yeah, that's the real story. Hopefully all this sounds like a nightmare, and it's a scared straight thing. I mean, you hear all these things, because we don't want to encourage anybody to drink and drive. That's the worst thing about it, because you can change lives. Your life, the life of you have a wreck. You can kill people. That's the thing, and that's a scary thing as a parent when you realize it's the first time your child can be in a car, and you have to be serious with them and talk about now you're affecting other people's lives, and people can die. And that's the same thing you need to realize as yourself. Now you're not talking about your children here. You're talking about yourself, that, you can impact others through your drinking. So just don't do it. Take advantage of what's out there today. There's so many different offerings, like I said, ways to get you home safely, and live another day. And you know what's expensive sometimes? Uber. You know what's more expensive? DUI. Even outside the cost of like my fee. So blanket, the cheapest a DWI probably is going to be like $1,250, $1,500 for your attorney's fees. That does not include the cost of an ignition interlock device on your car. That does not include the cost of extra insurance. You have to have SR22 insurance. Does not include your court costs or your community service or your victim impact program you have to go to, or your SATOP program, or your reinstatement fee. So all of these extra fees and costs and everything that goes into it, it makes that Uber trip or that hotel bill or whatever it is look real cheap.
Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Take the $35 ride.
Yeah, take the ride, and
you can pay $300 on an Uber, and you're still cutting yourself a hell of a deal.
Right, I agree. I agree that take advantage of what's out there today. So, all right, well, we'll wrap this one up as we always do by talking about where people can find us. Katie, we'll start with you. Where can people find you?
So you can find me, actually, if you are, I guess, in Missouri, in west of St. Louis in the Warren County area. I'm Joyce Law Firm. Since it's actually relevant for today's podcast, normally my law firm's not relevant for most of what we do. But you also can find me over on Instagram at Katie Proof.
All right, Evan.
You can find me on Facebook.
Whoa!
I don't know what.
He's home,
I don't
folks.
know what app that was. But
drinking
Facebook,
and podcasting is approved by us, though, so we're okay.
Yeah, he's okay.
Or on Instagram, Wit Wisdom Whiskey.
All right, Lenny.
You can find me and the rest of Deerhammer on social media at Deerhammer, on the web at deerhammer.com, where you can order bottles of our whiskey shipped to your door, and you can come visit us in beautiful Buena Vista, Colorado.
All right, Miss Beka Sue.
You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Miss Beka Sue, 1K, no C's.
All right. For me, I'm an easy guy to find. I'm at Steve Akeley on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. I've got a website, steveakeley.com. We've also got a company website. That thing's abvnetwork.com. Check it out because everything that we do is out there. We put our club information out there, our events, so much more, abvnetwork.com. And please come by and see us at the ABV Barrel Shop. You've got Jim and I there, both. We'd love to talk whiskey, so please come down and chat with us. We're in Arnold, Missouri, a St. Louis suburb, or at least check us out at abvbarrelshop.com where you can sign up for our email and text distribution list. Miss Beka Sue, anything else to say before we get out of here?
I'd just like to remind the audience to please give us a 5-star review that includes comments. It helps when people find the show, which is very important to us. If you like what we're doing, we ask you please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/the ABV Network.
All right, great job today, gang. For our audience, we'll have a brand new show for you tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Until then, take care, everybody. See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Peace. Before we finish the show, let's talk about some great companies that support the ABV network. First up is Moonshine Still Pro. Moonshine Still Pro has a full line of products to help the home distiller. Whether you want to experiment on the stove in your kitchen or you're looking for a bigger setup in your backyard, owner Russell Creed and his team can help. They have multiple still offerings, accessories, and even grain from their partners at Goldstone Mill to assist you in making whiskey on par with your favorite distillery. They can also help you with some fabricated parts you probably can't make yourself if you are attempting a DIY still project. Learn more or order your still or parts at moonshinestillpro.com. Another friend of ours is the Goldstein family at Goldstone Mill. The Goldsteins offer a variety of heritage and heirloom grains to make the finest whiskeys in the world. Plus, they are more than just a grain company. They are truly consultants to make sure the grains they are providing to you or your business meet your highest expectations. Additionally, they work with mills around the country, ensuring shipping is as low as possible for their customers. If you're a distillery, brewery, or even doing this at home, Goldstone can assist you. Check them out at goldstonemill.com, call them at 217-254-6613, or check in via email at hello@goldstonemill.com. Last but not least is the ABV Barrel Shop. While we don't get to play in the allocated bourbon game because we aren't selling the other products you have to do to get those, we do have access via our friendships in the bourbon industry to some really cool stuff. Have you ever seen your favorite craft distiller selling some really cool limited offerings only in their gift shop? I'm talking things like the Hazmat offering Distillery 291 did for their 10th anniversary, or Neely Family Distillery's Papaw's birthday barrel. They don't have enough of it to send it out to distributors, so they only sell it via their gift shop. Well, companies like Distillery 291 and Neely Family Distillery have agreed to sell us 2 or 3 cases of these offerings moving forward, meaning our store will have the access to some of the rarest whiskeys in the world. Way more difficult to come by than the allocated bourbon offerings with a national release. Yes, they will be extremely tough to come by, but if you're a customer of our store, you'll have a chance to get them. Get signed up for our email or text list over at abvbarrelshop.com so you don't miss out.
The Bourbon Daily is part of the ABV Network. For more information or to become a sponsor, please visit abvnetwork.com. Thanks for listening and cheers.
This has been a Steve Akeley production.